Today, we're diving into a type of data that most workplaces just completely ignore, and that's feelings. We're going to break down the absolutely critical role that emotions and moods play in our professional lives. And trust me, understanding them is a total game changer. You've heard this a million times, right? Leave your personal life at home. It's this idea that to be a true professional, you have to be some kind of rational, emotionless robot. But honestly, is that even possible? And maybe more importantly, is it even a good idea?
Well, for the longest time, the thinking in management was something called the myth of rationality. The whole idea was that emotions were just messy, They were seen as irrational, disruptive. The goal was to build this totally emotion-free workplace, because the belief was that feelings just got in the way of getting things done. But as we're about to see, that old idea is just fundamentally wrong.
Okay, so let's dive right in by getting our terms straight, because before we can really get into feelings at work, we need to understand the difference between two words we kind of throw around interchangeably: emotion and mood. They're not the same thing at all. First up, let's talk about emotion. An emotion is a short, really sharp reaction to something specific that just happened. Your boss gives you a huge compliment on a project, and you feel this awesome surge of happiness. Or a coworker steals your idea, and you feel that flash of anger. It's just like lightning. It's intense, it's brief, and it's caused by a very specific event. Now, a mood, that's a totally different beast. It's a much longer-lasting, more general feeling that a lot of the time doesn't have a clear, immediate trigger. You might just wake up one morning feeling great, or spend an entire afternoon feeling kind of grumpy for no real reason. So if an emotion is that flash of lightning, a mood is more like the day's overall weather. Kind of sunny, a little cloudy, or maybe just plain stormy.
And check this out. This table breaks down the key differences perfectly. Look at duration. Emotions are super brief, just seconds or minutes, while moods can hang around for hours or even days. And intensity. Emotions are sharp and intense. Moods are way more general. But here's the most important difference, right at the bottom: their nature. Emotions are action-oriented. They make you want to do something. Moods are more cognitive. They just color how you think about everything.
So, okay, we know what they are, but where do these emotions and moods actually come from? Let's jump into our next section and find out.
Well, it turns out it's not just one thing. There's a whole bunch of factors that are constantly messing with our internal state, kind of pulling on our emotional levers all day, every day.
What's really fascinating here is just how varied the sources are. I mean, sure, personality and stress, those are the big ones we all think about. But simple things like hanging out with friends, getting some exercise, and especially getting enough sleep, they have a proven, direct impact on your mood. It's true. Better sleep literally means you'll be in a better mood at work. And get this, research shows that as we get older, we actually tend to experience fewer negative emotions.
And I'm pretty sure this chart is going to look familiar to just about everyone. It shows a pattern most of us know all too well: the rhythm of the work week. For a lot of people, positive moods are at their lowest at the start of the week, and then they just climb and climb toward Friday. So that "thank God it's Friday" feeling, yeah, that's not just in your head. It's a real, measurable emotional pattern.
All right, we've got the foundations down. So now, let's take all this and apply it directly to the workplace. Let's look at how our feelings really operate when we're on the clock. This brings us to a really crucial idea called emotional labor. This is basically when your job actually requires you to display certain emotions. I mean, think about a flight attendant who has to be cheerful and calm no matter what, or a doctor who has to stay totally composed and empathetic. You're not just getting paid for your physical work anymore. You're getting paid to manage and perform specific feelings.
Now, the problem comes up when there's a big gap between what you actually feel on the inside and what you're forced to show on the outside. That gap has a name. It's called emotional dissonance. So imagine you're feeling incredibly frustrated, but you have to put on a huge, cheerful smile for a customer. Constantly having to fake it like that, it's exhausting. And over time, it can lead to some serious burnout.
So how do all those little things at work, a nice compliment from a colleague, a really frustrating email, how do they all add up? Well, that's the exact question that Affective Events Theory, or AET, tries to answer. And it's a simple but really powerful idea. Things that happen at work trigger emotional reactions, and those reactions have a direct impact on our job satisfaction and how well we do our jobs.
So what AET really shows us is that the workplace isn't some steady, predictable environment. No, it's a constant series of events, a frustrating meeting, an unexpected compliment, a difficult client, that trigger our emotions. And those emotions, in turn, affect our performance. The big takeaway here is that you can't just ignore those minor daily hassles or little uplifts. They build up, and they have a very real impact.
Now, understanding all of this stuff isn't just an academic exercise. It's about developing a real professional advantage, which you could honestly call an emotional superpower.
And that superpower is emotional intelligence, or EI. So what is it? Well, it's the skill of being self-aware enough to recognize what you're feeling, being perceptive enough to pick up on emotions in other people, and then being skilled enough to manage all those emotional cues and information effectively.
Now, to be fair, EI isn't without its critics. On one hand, people who are for it say it just makes intuitive sense and that it's a good predictor of job performance. But on the other hand, critics argue that the whole concept is a bit vague and that it's really hard to measure accurately. But you know what? Regardless of that academic debate, the real-world practical applications of understanding emotions at work are just undeniable.
I mean, just think about it. When it comes to hiring, you can actually screen for high EI in jobs that require a ton of social interaction. We know for a fact that people in positive moods tend to make better, faster decisions and are more creative. And for leaders, oh man, being able to communicate with emotional awareness is absolutely crucial if you want your team to actually buy into your message. But here's something really important to remember. All of this depends on context. Emotions don't exist in a vacuum. They're deeply influenced by culture. So for our last section, let's take a quick look at the global perspective on all this.
So, while some basic emotions might be universal, culture pretty much shapes everything else about them. It influences what emotions we feel most often, how we interpret them, like is being excited valued more than being calm, and maybe most obviously, the rules for how we express them. In some cultures, showing your emotions openly is totally fine, even encouraged. In others, it's seen as really unprofessional or just plain inappropriate.
So after looking at all of this, we get to the real bottom line. That old myth of rationality? It's dead. It has to be. Emotions are not just noise to be filtered out. They are data. And any manager who ignores the emotional life of their team is ignoring one of the most critical factors that drive satisfaction, behavior, and ultimately performance.
And that leaves all of us with one last big question to think about. Emotions give us priceless insights into what's really going on under the surface at work. So are you and is your company actually paying attention? Or are you just letting your most valuable data walk right out the door every single day?